Hello, my name is Sahila, and this is the Learn to Let Go podcast. Usually with Kathy Nguyen, but she couldn't be here today, so we have my man, Zach Caldicott, and our special guest. Special guest. He is a small business owner, a poet, among many other things. Tino Hove.
What's up?
Tino, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a good time.
It's a great time. Welcome to the podcast. So, how's been your week, bro?
We've just started. Lots of stuff. I'm a student as well, so I told myself I'd start catching up with school on Monday, but that didn't happen. So hopefully I'll start catching up with school today. I got a bunch of work stuff done though. By a bunch I mean
Mm.
four things. So small incremental steps to progress.
Hey,
So it's good.
that's how we progress. You're an economics major, right?
Who, myself?
Yeah,
No, I'm a marketing major.
you're a marketing major. So what's the difference between that and like economics and business?
Well, marketing is a segment of business.
Mm-hmm.
Economics looks more at the theory of the environment in which business operates, right?
Uh,
So, for instance, in business, we will learn, finance and how to do financial projections, like how to forecast, like leveraging, gearing, that sort of thing. Whereas in economics, you'd learn more so the result of the business environment, right? So you'd learn items that are associated with government policy and how that's going to affect how you operate in that business. So if you're going to look at it, kind of like a machine, right?
mm-hmm.
Economics would be where the machine will be used. So, for instance, a car, right? Economics would
Yeah,
be we're building this car for the desert, and economics would be the desert, right? And
yeah,
business would be the actual mechanisms of the car. Like, okay, if we're going to have this car operating in the desert, which is that economic environment, we should probably have like tires and wheels that are accustomed to that. Now, those tires and the wheels are the aspects of business you study. So business is the car, and then marketing would be like the wheel, and then finance would be like the brake pads, and then accounting would be like the engine. Like that's kind of how that would work, if that makes sense.
my gosh, you just explained the car parts of business. I feel encouraged. I feel inspired. Literally, what drives business? Literally. So, could
Yeah.
you tell us about your business?
Yeah. So
I mean, like, if you can. Mhm.
yeah, no, for sure. I recently started a new business. It's called My Gift Me, and it's skip the dishes for retail, right?
Mhm.
It's a marketplace that hosts numerous small businesses and small creators in one place and allows people to buy from them. And we offer same day delivery. So picture, you want to buy something from Aldo, you'd go on our platform, you'd click Aldo, you'd buy a pair of shoes, you'd pay a delivery fee, we'd pick it up and we'd drop it off. Well, and the other aspect of that is we actually opened up the marketplace for stores that are not partnered with us to still provide them with delivery. So, if, say, you, for example, buy something from Walmart and you don't want to drive all the way to Walmart, you can just go on our platform and ask us to just pick it up and you just pay the delivery fee. Same thing with the store, right? If a store is like, look, I don't want to pay the 10% commission that we take on sales, but I do want to use the delivery service, they can just go on our website and ask us to deliver a package for them, right? So it's made it very accessible for stores and for users to buy things, right? So, for instance, if you live in the South, you want to buy something in Garden City, you might not want to drive 45 minutes to get it, right? So you
Mhm.
buy it anywhere online and ask us to go pick it up if they're not a partner. If they are a partner, you can just buy straight away from our site, right? And the same day delivery option also means that you get your items as soon as you need them. Yeah, so cool aspects. Student. It's a student run business. Well, I'm a student myself, and we primarily employ students and recent grads. And by recent grads, I mean someone who's literally graduated like a semester ago, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's what the business does. And the whole goal is to increase accessibility for the people involved and for small business owners. a cool thing. So we only take 10% commission on sales. Our competition is taking 25 to 30% on sales. So that makes their platforms really inaccessible, right?
Mm.
For people with smaller profit margins. Because if you're only profiting 30% anyway on your product, as a lot of small sellers and small businesses are, right? They're taking the entire profit. You know what I mean?
That's
Um,
Right.
good. Mhm.
go ahead.
That's great.
Yeah, right. So we wanted to make it as accessible as possible. So we take a smaller percentage, and another item that we do a little bit differently is because we do care about our staff. We pay our staff hourly, so we don't pay them per delivery. Um,
That's
so we
good.
want to make sure that everyone's taken care of in the ecosystem, right? I feel we made the business in order to provide a environment for people who would usually not have access to things, you know. So that's kind of what we are and what we do.
Mm. Can you tell the people where they can find this business on the
Yeah, for sure.
availabilities?
The website, yeah, the website is mygiftme.com, and then Instagram is at mygiftme.
All right. So for those who didn't hear that, or for those who couldn't, I don't know, for some reason, if you can't spell that out, I will put that in the description of this episode. Please go check it out. Please support Winnipeg local businesses. For those who do not know, for our American audience, Skip the Dishes is like DoorDash. It's like Uber
Uber
Eats.
Eats.
It's very similar to those products. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
is it only available in Canada right now? Do you have any like plans to expand?
Yeah, so it's we're only in Winnipeg right now, well,
Right.
October, and we are expanding to outer cities. So right now, we're going to be expanding to Brandon, Steinbach, Selkirk, the outer cities of Manitoba. So we want to provide service to individuals who typically have to drive into Winnipeg as the capital of Manitoba to get certain goods. We want to cut that out for them, right? We want them to be able to just purchase and have us drop it off. So we're expanding that part of the business in the next 2 months. So hopefully by April, and then we're gonna be growing into Saskatchewan and Alberta within the year.
Awesome.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. We are bootstrapping everything, so that's why progress is a bit slow. So all the funding that we're using for the business comes from the business and from myself,
Hmm.
right?
Wow.
So that's why progress is a little bit slower. But small incremental steps to progress. Rome was not built in a day.
Absolutely. That's the
Yeah.
that's the right mindset to have.
Yeah, man. Like it doesn't help to think you're going slow when you're going as fast as you can. You know?
Hey, as a young black owned business, I get it. I get it. It takes a while to get there, but we have to believe that one day we will get there. And I do like this business. I have heard of it because I am friends with some of the people in the co-ownership of your business, I believe, right?
Yeah, I have a business partner.
Yeah, I'm friends with like a lot of your people. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've known about this for a while, but I'm glad to hear about it in more detail now.
Yeah, man. It's pretty cool. I think the most important thing about anything, not just
Mhm.
business, but if you wanna do anything, is just to start. Right?
It's just a start.
It's
Yeah,
to start where you are.
I'm sure you have noticed that with most people of our culture, they tend to just talk about things and never start them. So it's actually good to hear you started.
Well, I actually don't believe that it's people's fault that they talk about things and they don't start. I
Hmm.
think it is how we've been conditioned to perform activities.
Hmm.
Mm.
Like for instance, you don't just go in and start writing an exam. You're told, you get 3 months, you learn the information, and then get another month, you study it, and then you're told when the exam is going to be, and then you get a time like that's how a lot of people function, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
you know
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
how a lot of pieces of our lives are, right? So we're told we have to know everything before you can accomplish something, right?
I think
Oh.
yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, whenever I wanted to achieve something, I always looked at the end result and didn't like take into account of all the little steps that I needed to take. So I would just give up.
Mm,
Once I reevaluated and learned that there's a lot of little things that need to be done before I can come anywhere near accomplishing my goal, it became a lot easier for me to begin the process of actually
mm-hmm,
one day getting to that larger goal.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Breaking it down, breaking down a goal is super important, right? because it stops looking like you said, right? If you look at where you want to be and where you are, it seems like a mammoth task, right?
Absolutely.
Right, like no way. If you think if you had told Steve Jobs that if Steve Jobs had looked at Apple and said, I'm going to try and build like $1 billion company today, like it's not realistic, but it's like I'm going to make a phone, you know, I'm gonna make one
Right.
phone, you know, and then move from there.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
it's good to identify those small steps into building your larger company. Maybe that's why we feel is that we've been kind of taught this express culture is that if things don't work out in 3 months, mm,
Well,
don't keep pursuing it.
Oh,
even in that whole of things, so I think it's always important to know when to stop.
So it's important. When do you know when to stop though?
For me, I know when to stop. I've always learned how to stop very like too late in the process. Like I
Yeah,
always I always kind of stop when can I swear in this?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've always learned
This
to
is a
stop when
show.
shit hits the fan.
He
Which is why I got a business partner. I got a business partner because he knows how to stop sooner.
knows how to stop soon. He's
But
kind of like the safety net that is.
exactly. So I think for me anyway, learn how to stop. Man, I don't think I've ever stopped. I think I always just reevaluate.
Just soldier on.
Well,
what
well,
motivates you to continue?
I usually just there's an interesting thing that I learned. They say like a lot of risk takers, like entrepreneurs or whatever. You need a certain level of ignorance and arrogance, right? You need to be arrogant enough to believe you can do anything, and ignorant enough to not know the extent of the task you want to complete.
Mm.
That's a
Right.
really good way to look at it. Yeah.
Right. So for me, what motivates me to continue is like most times I actually don't know how hard it's going to get.
Mhm.
Right. So in my head, it always seems doable. It never
It's almost
seems
like
impossible.
it almost seems like the more you progress, the more difficult it could become, but the challenge itself could be exciting.
Exactly, right? Because it's kind of like playing a video game, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
right? Like you start
Yeah.
at level 1 and then like it gets harder at level 25, but because you've done 25 levels, you're kind of like I can probably beat level 25, you know?
Right. It's like I've beaten 24 levels. Like, how hard could the next one be?
Exactly.
I've accomplished so much. So what's next?
And
Mm.
that's another thing. Another thing about learning to stop is the sunk cost fallacy, right? You're like, I already put $5,000 into this. I can't stop now. Well, yeah, stop at 5,000. Don't get to 10.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know.
you got to have a limit as well. Like for me, um, I've liked to dabble in screenwriting
Hmm.
Mm.
over the years, and I was never successful because the planning was so poor on my end. I
Hmm.
didn't take time to develop the story. I didn't take time to develop the character. I didn't plan out scenes, so I would just mindlessly write,
Hmm.
and the
Mhm.
dialogue was poor, and
Hmm.
there was nothing actually really happening of
Mhm.
substance. And then
Hmm.
I stopped. And then I recently came up with an idea, and I've been working with somebody for a couple months now,
Hmm.
and we planned everything out. We planned out every scene. We wrote full descriptions of the characters, and we're now like 2/3 of the way done with the first draft. So
Hmm.
if you take time that we didn't even take that much time to plan, but we executed quickly,
Hmm.
so we were able to begin the process, and we've been doing this for like 2.5 months now, every week, and it's been awesome. So planning,
Yeah.
um, and taking every small detail into account is extremely important for success in any measure.
Yeah, man.
Mm.
And I think just on kind of on that note about planning, I'd also say the great thing about planning is it sets a direction, right? You know exactly what you need to do every day to reach the goal. You know what I mean?
Mm. I get it.
Um, I think just kind of on the note of knowing when to stop. Sometimes it's not a matter of knowing when to stop; it's knowing when to pivot.
Ah, I see. So
Right.
like knowing when to shift the
So I
idea.
kind of think with what you did, Zach, is you knew when to pivot, right? It was,
Yeah.
I need to stop what I'm doing right now and change my method, right?
Right. Because I've gotten advice in the past where it's like, oh, just write. No problem. And like that didn't work for me. It's not bad.
Hmm.
And it kind of gets the ball rolling, but
Hmm.
that can only go so far where you're stuck. It's like, all right, where do I go from here? The
Hmm.
hardest thing with anything is getting started, especially if you don't know what you're doing.
Hmm.
So if you take the time to research and learn and go about it slowly in the right way at a comfortable pace, success is a lot more likely. So I totally agree with you.
Well, I'm actually going to touch on what you said there. I think, though, that the fact that you had started writing before before you knew how to plan allowed you to start planning because you knew what not to do.
Yes, exactly. I needed to make those mistakes to get to a point where I knew what wasn't going to work for me moving forward.
Hmm.
But I utilized the new people I was meeting to
Hmm.
get the resources I needed to do this the right way, or else I
Yeah.
would have, or else I would have followed,
Hmm.
continue the same cycle where I write, I get excited, I lose wind, and I'm done. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's very hard for me to stay focused for more than a couple weeks on something. I
Oh
lose
yeah.
interest quickly.
Oh yeah. And
So yeah.
yeah, on that, I think it's also super cool that you found people to help you stay focused because I find that it's very easy to let ourselves down. It's harder to
Oh my,
let another person down,
100%. That I couldn't agree more.
right? So having another person who's looking at you, you're like, okay, I kind of okay. If I don't do this, it's not just me, right?
Right. I'm accountable for somebody else as well as myself, so I want to be able to contribute as much as this person's willing to contribute.
Exactly. So which is why getting a partner is super important. Getting a partner is
Oh
super.
yeah.
Hello, this is me. It's a hello from the Learn to Let Go podcast. It's just to remind you guys you can follow us on the Learn to Let Go pod on Instagram. Thank you so much. We also have a Facebook page. Follow us on there too. You can also find us on the Anda Records page on YouTube. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. But I think it's time to pivot
Mhm,
into what the episode is about.
mhm.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Zach, do you know what the episode is about?
Remind me and everybody else. I
I'll
do know
remind
what it's
everybody
about,
else.
but tell the people.
I don't know what it's about. So this
Oh.
episode is about. I do know it's about. Relax, Zach. Um, so this episode is about cursing.
Cursing.
Oh.
Yes. So it was weird when you brought it up earlier. So it's
Mm,
weird when you brought it because I didn't tell you what it's about on purpose.
mm,
So you are someone who is very artsy. You're a very artsy guy, I presume. You
mhm.
have a whole show which you stopped doing for some reason, and
For
you've
some
done
reason.
for
Yeah.
some reason,
Uh-huh.
and you are a very, I think you're a very active poet in the Winnipeg community. I'm assuming,
Mhm.
like you, or even if you don't participate all the time, you at least know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did want to ask you, what do you think in art? Do you think that cursing adds something or it doesn't?
Hmm. Zach, why don't you start in your screenwriting? When do you have characters that curse?
Sure. No, that's a really good question. So I'll just start with me. So I I think people definitely express themselves through cursing, but it's not necessary. But there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with it.
Mm,
So sometimes I'm so programmed to just use curse words in certain situations when speaking.
mm-hmm.
But I find that if I could take a step back, I can almost program myself mentally
Mm,
to speak a little bit more eloquently and avoid using curse words.
mm,
In screenwriting, based off the type of movie it is, there are a lot of curse words. It
mm-hmm.
but you can write something, you can write poetry, you can write short stories, articles, and there won't be the story will be fine. I think it's really particular to the writer or the person speaking.
Mhm.
But for me, I found that I can be successful communicating by cursing or not cursing.
Mm. I I'll add to that. I agree with you that I think sometimes cursing for artists. So I'm a writer and a performer. So like words are kind of like where my art comes from.
Mhm.
So for me, I found that cursing can make you a lazy writer,
Oh.
Really?
right? Because it's easier to throw a curse word in something than to think of an actual word for it.
So I
Yeah.
think yes, that does make sense. So I feel like from a screenwriting standpoint, you're writing characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like base off some of the characters I've written,
Mm-hmm.
um curse words would most definitely be in their vocabulary. But then there
Mm-hmm.
are people I've written where they don't curse at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if I'm writing characters, excuse me, it depends more on the person I'm writing the dialogue for.
Oh, 100%. And I think also in that same kind of direction, even in poetry, it sometimes you write poetry not from your own perspective, right? So
Right.
when you're writing a character, you're like, okay, this character curses. That's what they are. That's what they do, right? It's part of their it's part of who they are, and you're creating a whole person. In in poetry and in speaking, however, it's the same concept of it's just a cursing poem, right? So an example would be if you're angry, right? You can
Yeah.
throw an f bomb here and there, right? Because all angry people do, right? Or if you're portraying an unreasonable situation, right?
Mhm.
However, sometimes I find in writing descriptions or in descriptive writing, curse words can take away from the joy of the artistry of writing, right? So, for instance, here's something, right?
Mhm.
Instead of saying, you know, when he like this was fucking ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or I could describe something as idiotic, you know. I could use or even this. Here's a good example, right? Instead of saying this guy blew his fucking top, right?
Yeah.
In this pro, so that describes that he was really upset, right? I could
Mhm.
say he spoke as if molten lava was dripping from his tongue.
Oh my gosh, I love
Oh.
that.
So
I
you could be
love
very
that.
eloquent and creative with your dialogue if you're not cursing. That is a good point.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
But like you said, it depends on the character, right? Sometimes the character just doesn't have that. Sometimes you build a character or you're describing someone who doesn't have an extensive dialogue, right? An extensive vocabulary, and you have to throw those curse words in, right? But
Right.
I just find that in art sometimes cursing makes me lazy,
Mm.
you know? Like it's
How do you?
easy to
Mm?
write a poem that just say, fuck you, right? Right? Instead of
Yeah.
like describing the emotion that I'm feeling, you know.
Right.
How do you feel about it, like in other people's media, like except for your own? When, like, if you heard me do it, like in a poem or something, how would you feel about it? Would it be about the context of using it, or would you just immediately think, ah, she's trying to take a shortcut because he didn't know what to put there?
It depends on how I think about you.
Mm-hmm.
So so for instance, if I'm a J. Cole fan and a Kendrick
Yeah.
Me too.
Lamar fan, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I hear J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar swear, I'm like, yeah, they probably thought about this and they put that word in for a reason. It's part of the song, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like when I hear like I don't know Trippy Red or like whatever like little whoever's like swear, I'm like they actually just don't know words.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna like lyrically, J. Cole is like on another level than like a Trippy Red. So like he doesn't need to use curse words to like fill up a song.
Yeah,
Like he's a little bit more eloquent when he's rapping. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
yeah. So it depends on what I think about you. If I'm predisposed to thinking you don't have words.
Then
Then you know, okay, this dude is gonna curse because it's
he
kind
doesn't
of
know.
simpler for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I also think like cursing is like a culture thing, right? I think like it depends on where you at. Like if like somewhere deep in Zambia, right?
Mm.
I can't just let curse words fly because or I can't use the same type of English curse words because it's like irregular there. It's
Mm,
sort of it would stand out. But if you say like curse words in Bemba, no one will really like flinch or be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so abhorrent."
mm,
So
You
I
know,
think,
I
mm,
yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, there's definitely a time and place, for cursing. Like if I'm
yeah,
at a Thanksgiving dinner with my entire family, no, I won't curse. But if I'm hanging out with my friends
mm,
and yeah, I'm more likely to curse. But there have been times when I'm talking and I find myself cursing more than usual, and I have to take a step back and say,
mm,
uh, I don't really want to speak this way. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm like, I have a better vocabulary personally than this, so
mhm,
let me use my words a little bit more.
mm,
mm,
mm, mm. I think on that note, in terms of where to curse, I think sometimes curse words can be liberating.
mm. What do you
Like
mean?
if I'm in an environment where I feel that I cannot be who I am, I would throw a curse word out for shock factor.
To
Hmm.
test the waters?
Huh.
Not even test the waters, but it's almost defiant, right? It's like I want to assert my position as an individual,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
Right.
Because sometimes it's an environment where you wouldn't normally curse, but because of the situation, you're like, look, if I don't do something quote unquote dramatic here, I'll never be able to express myself.
oh,
And
Right.
once you stop conforming to that, you kind of non-conformity breeds freedom.
oh.
Because eventually people are just gonna be like, ah, bro, look, he curses in front of the grandparents, man. Like, let him do what he wants, you know? Yeah.
um,
And it allows you to get away with a lot more. When people have lesser expectations of you, it allows you to do more. So I think sometimes cursing can be liberating.
mm,
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a time and a place, Like there are some times where I just want to curse a lot. And there are some times where I'm like, all right, like I know at most jobs I have, I can't be cursing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just taboo. It's not it's not a good thing to do. It would be considered unprofessional in certain work environments.
Hmm.
And then there are other work environments where a curse word comes out of someone's mouth every other word.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I also think sometimes curse words are very descriptive. Like, bro, when you stub your little toe in a corner, you can't just say, "Oh, flip." Like that's not an moment. That's not
Not
a
going to work.
flip kind
Never.
of pain.
Never.
mm,
That's not a
Exactly.
thing. Like I think sometimes curse words are very descriptive as to exactly what's going on.
mm. Yeah, that's why I feel like it's more a culture thing than like a real thing. I don't think like because like most people, if you grow up like in an Anglo Christian society, right, they will portray that the curse words itself are bad.
Hmm.
But I don't think so. I think it depends on the culture of where you're at. Like let's look at the word like a word like crap, for example, right?
Hmm.
In some places, crap is just an ordinary word.
Hmm.
It just refers to poop. In other places, it's like on the same level as an F or something. So
Hmm.
like that's why for me, when people talk about curse words, like I don't think they know what they're talking about necessarily because this word maybe like 1,000 years ago just referred to defecation. How has it suddenly become a curse word?
It's
How has
kind
it
of like
suddenly
bitch, right? Like bitch is
yeah?
just a dog. It's just a female dog. That's what it is.
Yes.
True.
How did this suddenly become a word of like disrespect? I think it depends on the usage of it and the person saying it. Like um like the word used to degrade most women. Like if you call it like a woman a whore, right?
Mm.
Like that word. If you look at the intent of the person saying it, you can tell they're trying to hurt somebody. Then there are other places where like, dang, you hoe. You can see like someone's just trying to have fun. They're at the party. Oh, be a hoe here. It's just it's stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think that like the words themselves are bad.
Hmm.
I think that um intent should be taken first because I think the Bible in Ephesians says from the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks.
Hmm.
So people will try to say that in terms of no, don't say curse words. But I think what it's saying is that the intent of how you say things matter. Like, are you trying to purposely hurt. Is what you're saying purposely trying to hurt people?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's more about that. I think we've kind of like mixed our values and our culture and our religion to make regular things become crimes now. Yeah.
I feel that.
So, in your opinion, because I know that's just a Taylor thought, and Taylor
Ah,
thoughts be wild. So, in your opinion, do you think curse words are a real thing, or it's just a thing we decide as a culture is real?
well, I think I'm a constructivist, so I believe we create the world in which we live in. So like I don't think like a word is not inherently bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like words are just not inherent. They're just words. They're just things. They're just a collection of sounds,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not inherently bad. It is how we interpret them that makes it bad. So I don't even think it's about the intention of the person saying them. I think it's about the interpretation of the person receiving them. Like I'm always
Oh,
been
okay.
Ah,
right. I've always been a huge advocate of like I'm responsible for what I say, not what you understand.
right. No, I mean that's a great
Oh
point.
my gosh,
Yeah,
you're blowing my mind right now.
I
Right.
know. I know. I got a whole new perspective right now.
Right.
For
Like
real.
yeah, because a lot of times people you say something and someone will decide on their own to be offended. Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, if you listen to what I actually said, this is not an offensive thing that I said, right? Like, here's a very good example of that, right? If I see someone and I'm like, hey man, like you've really put on, a lot of weight,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not an offensive statement.
Mm,
Like it is
Mm.
literally just stating a fact of observation. I just stated a thing.
mm.
It's something you noticed.
It's
Yeah,
like
I just
saying the ball is red.
Yeah, I'm
It,
just like
it,
I saw you when I saw you. You were 140 pounds. Now you're 250. Like it's.
mm,
I'm just saying. I'm just stating a fact.
mm,
Like if it was a lie, that would then I'm responsible for saying a lie, right?
Hmm.
But if I just said it and it's just true, and then you get mad at me, I'm like, why are you mad at me?
mm. Do you think it's more to do with their inner self or their inner feelings, or do you
Yeah, like
think
don't
that
project
people?
your offense towards me.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
and I think that's really important. Even and with curse words, it's the exact same thing, right? You'll see like someone will be like bitch, and then someone will get offended, and someone like bitch, and then like oh bitch,
mm.
Mhm.
you
It's like
know,
a weird thing when you add the high note, it becomes perfectly fine.
yeah, right. And that's
Mhm.
the thing, right? Like it's another thing where I'm like, look, when I said it, you have no idea what my intent was, regardless of my note,
Ah,
right? But if you get offended, you cannot say Tino wanted to offend me because you don't know what my intention was,
mm,
Yeah.
right? And then there's
mm.
other situations where things are just inherent with where you have said something that's blatantly offensive.
What would you
Things that are
consider
blatantly
blatantly
offensive
offensive?
are typically things that have um, readily available knowledge, right?
Like what?
Like in this current political climate, a white person calling a black person a nigger,
Mm-hmm.
like that is offensive because it is well known that that is an offensive term when said by this like race of people. That's well known.
Mm-hmm.
That's a well known thing. So in that sense statement, you're responsible for what you've said is an offensive thing. So same thing with crosswords, right? Like you're a person is only ever responsible for what they say. Don't hold them accountable for your feelings about it.
Oh,
Hmm.
That's just my 2 cents.
I learned that the hard way. When dealing with white folk, right? So like that like there's a specific way black folk talk to each other, right?
Mhm.
So like when like white folk are near that and they see you talking the way you talk with your other black folk, they think it's somehow cool for them to talk like y'all.
Hmm.
So I have learned that when I'm around certain like white folk who are not used to being around black people, I will talk in a certain way where like I don't do all those black things I usually do with my black friends
Hmm.
because like on their part, right? Not saying to excuse the ignorance, but on their part, they've never been around black people.
Hmm.
So when you say like N words and stuff, they'll think like, oh, so that's what we say here. We're all friends. They'll get it and they come, hey, my N word, what you say? And it just becomes this weird thing where, like, me personally, I've just decided that around white people, I would not talk as freely as I would with you
Hmm.
because you never know.
Well, and I think that's important too, to realize how you want to be spoken to and take that, upon yourself. I
Yeah.
also think that, yeah, you know what, yeah, I think it's important, right? But I also think, in that sense, I also think like taking responsibility for the environment you create is also an important thing, right? And yeah, that makes sense, right? Like you can't be in a house and you scroll the time and you expect your kid not to pick up on it and you get mad at them. No, that's your fault. It's on you.
I think when it comes to children, I think like parents know their kids curse is just not in front of them. I think as a parent, you shouldn't shield your kids from curse words. You should at least tell them where it's appropriate. But that's just my view of parenting because I think parents try to pretend things don't exist. And with that being said, we have reached the conclusion of the episode. So, gentlemen, what do you think we need to learn to let go of as a culture when it comes to cursing? Should we let go of the stigma of it or should we not let go of it at all?
I'll start because I think that we need to view language for what it is and not what we wish it was.
Mm,
And when it comes to cursing specifically, I think we need to understand the reason we're cursing.
mm,
So keep the cursing, but understand why you're doing it.
Huh.
right?
And for me, I mean, I definitely agree with what you just said. I like what you mentioned earlier about, words are kind of just words, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say most of the time, but it's kind of up to how you interpret it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's just there's nothing wrong with it, but I guess there are definitely certain situations where it calls for it more or less. So, it depends. It's reading a room sometimes to figure out when it's appropriate.
Mm.
Mm,
Mm.
Because sometimes I want to curse, but I know how other people may perceive me cursing or how they could be offended, and sometimes I just don't want to offend anybody.
I get that. I get that.
Sometimes I said, not all the time. Sometimes.
For me, I'd prefer not to do it in like professional contexts and like certain contexts. But I think we should erase the stigma of getting mad when other people do it. I don't think
Yeah.
it's your right to tell other people what they should do or not do just because you personally, maybe because of your faith, maybe because of your whatever. I don't think it's right to tell people how to live just because you feel that your way of living is the right way to live. And with that being said, this has been the Learn to Let Go podcast with my guests, Zach Caldicott from Strangers No More Media. Go check out his website. This has been Tino Hove. Tino Hove, could you remind the people where to find you, where to follow you, if they
Yeah, and
want to
you can
interact
follow
with
me on
more content?
Instagram, just at the Tino Hove, and you can also check out our website, mygiftme.com. It's a vibe.
All right, and if you're in Winnipeg, I guess you might see Tino Hove. You might get to see him do poetry. You might get to make do deliveries with him and with this company. Please support Black businesses. Thank you for listening to the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thank you.